Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have a couple of encounters with alien beings. One very deadly, another, well, rather bewildering, and both accounts very fascinating. We'll read the first account. Veiled humanoid wearing sombrero-like hat appears in Kadimah, Israel. And then afterwards, we'll read the deadly encounter these two men had with alien beings. Either way, let's get into the first article and then have an interesting time. The figure wore a metallic overall in what appeared to be a sombrero-like headgear with a veil that covered his face completely. The figure and the witness then stared at each other for about 30 seconds. That was another brief excerpt from the actual story, folks, and it's very interesting as it sets up that the story is very weird with a figure wearing, well, an out-of-this-world bizarre attire. Either way, let's read the actual account now. Kadimah, Israel, March 20th, 1993, 6:30 a.m. Zipporit Carmel woke up earlier than usual and went to her kitchen. As she got there, she noticed that the room was bathed in a strange light. She went to check the grounds, and as she walked around the storage shed, she noticed what appeared to be a large fruit silo on a nearby field. As she took a closer look, she noticed that the silo-like object was silver-colored and square in shape. It had what appeared to be 18 glowing square windows along its side. 5 huge beams of powerful light shone from its top into the sky. So, this thing was glowing, and it looks and sounds sort of like basically, well, like a rocket ship, folks. Like a classic rocket ship that you'd see drawn in basically, well, 40s or 50s comic books. So it didn't sound like a typical flying saucer or UFO, doesn't it, folks? It does sound similar to cigar-shaped UFOs, but usually when they're seen, they're basically horizontal instead of basically being vertical like this. Either way, let's get back to the account, folks, because this is indeed very strange. Now, suddenly what appeared to be a second section of the object materialized, doubling in size. Then a 7-foot-tall man-like figure appeared near the object. The dogs reacted in a violent manner upon seeing the figure. The figure wore a metallic overall and what appeared to be a sombrero-like headgear with a veil that covered his face completely. The figure and the witness then stared at each other for about 30 seconds. Zipporit then quietly whispered, "Why don't you take off your hat so I can see your face?" She then heard a clear voice inside her head that spoke in Hebrew, telling her that's how things were. The witness then felt compelled to go back to her kitchen. Later, during a search of the field, numerous ground traces were found. An unknown smelly substance that made people sick with nausea was also found. The source, UFO Universe newsletter, Albert S. Roselius. So basically, thanks to, well, Albert S. Roselius and this UFO Universe newsletter, thanks to them, folks, we now know about this story, which is indeed very strange. Now, this figure in the story, folks, why was he wearing a sombrero-like hat? In most accounts that we hear of these entities wearing clothing, they're mentioned as wearing basically helmets or something similar. Like basically just literally they're wearing astronaut helmets. But this guy was wearing something like a sombrero with a veil over his face, folks. So that's, well, that is just weird. Why? And the figure tells this woman in her head in Hebrew, this is the way things are. So he's literally telling her that I'm supposed to wear this outfit and you're supposed to see me and you're not supposed to see my face. Though, it is something, folks, that this woman was brave enough to basically talk to this figure. But the fact that he tells her that this is the way things are and this is how I'm going to appear to you. And not to mention the way this UFO appeared to basically appear in sections. All of it together is a very strange account, folks. What was it really? All I can say is indeed, folks, that this sort of thing I do believe happens. But either way, folks, let's move to the next article. Deadly abduction suffered by 2 Australian experiencers. And here how these men encountered these alien beings, folks, that affected the rest of their lives, which turned out to sadly be very short ones. So, let's read this account of how these men encountered these weird figures outside of their homes and how it basically, well, signaled that this was basically it for them. Both men, who were in their 30s, eventually lost their sight and passed away within 2 years of the encounter. An autopsy was performed on both men, but an official cause of death was never released. So as you can see, folks, this is indeed a deadly encounter with a UFO. I have a few theories on it, but we'll wait till after we read the story first. Either way, let's get into it. Location date, Nelladodi, South Australia, June 1979, early evening. The two witnesses, Jack and Don, had been experiencing problems with their outdoor TV antenna being twisted around. The cause puzzled them. One evening, after cooking a meal, the Venetian blinds lifted and lowered. Both went outside to investigate and were approached by European-looking people. They appeared to be wearing dark-colored woolen jumpers and included both males and females. A bright light shone on them, and both men felt calm. So, indeed, these men didn't feel in danger, folks. But if both men knew what was in store for them in the coming months and years, they probably would have run away. But it appears that whatever these entities did to these two men, it basically made them, well, very calm and unable to run away. That's the sad thing here, folks. Now, why this happened and the deadly results of the encounter we'll be reading about were possibly because these entities don't know humans all that well. But what can I say, folks? These entities, from the descriptions of them, sound, well, as non-threatening as possible. All they were wearing were blue jumpers, and that's it. Nothing told these two men that they were looking at alien beings. So I don't think I basically feel all that threatened either, but maybe I wouldn't go outside to begin with. But either way, all I can say, indeed, a strange account. Now, do you suppose that these entities from the descriptions could have been some sort of bio-androids, like basically how people describe the gray aliens? I mean, they were male and female, but they do seem to have all different faces, and they were wearing all the same uniform, so maybe they were actually just some sort of reconnaissance group or something sent to the planet to basically gather information, perhaps. I mean, they could have been soldiers, I guess, but they kind of give off this feel that these entities, despite looking like human, were, well, very robotic. But that's just me, folks. Let's finish off this article now, and then we'll discuss it more thoroughly, as well with the first story we read through, folks. They were then taken to a mound of gravel next to which an oval-shaped craft was located. The men were escorted inside, though they never remembered entering a passageway. It was cold, so the beings agreed to take them back to the house to get coats. They were not allowed to take food. They then returned to the craft, which took off. As it ascended, they saw the TV antenna on the house below twist around. They could see across the Murray River as they rose. Don, the younger of the two, underwent strange repetitive tests. Many hours later, they were returned. Later, a neighbor visited and found them confused. The local police were immediately called in. The two men were taken to a local hospital and seemed to be suffering from jaundice and eye problems. Both men, who were in their 30s, eventually lost their sight and passed away within 2 years of the encounter. An autopsy was performed on both men, but an official cause of death was never released. Source: The Oz Files, through witness statements, Albert S. Roselius. So once again, we have the efforts of Albert S. Roselius to thanks for basically telling us about this story, folks. So very interesting, as well as the Oz Files, apparently. Thank you both for basically filling us in on this fascinating story, folks. Now, I've said before, folks, that aliens, they haven't invaded Earth, so I give them the benefit of the doubt. Though, there could be, and maybe are, instances where aliens have caused basically, well, both people and animals to die, but it's never really proven, folks. Now, it could be that maybe both men were exposed to some sort of poisoning thanks to basically being in contact with these beings. Maybe radiation poisoning, or maybe it was some sort of chemical that these men were exposed to as these alien beings were both examining them and testing them. But that's just my own pet theory, folks. What do you make of it? Why did these men both die? Was it maybe maliciousness on the part of the aliens? They don't seem malicious to me, folks. They don't seem like they had any real emotions. And there's also the fact that maybe they were actually just people, folks. Maybe this was some sort of, well, operation conducted by some sort of top-secret research group, and they abducted these men for these tests because they wanted to see what would happen, especially if they exposed these men to some sort of poison or other substance. It could be, folks. I'd rather think that than it was the aliens that caused these two men's death. But then again, as I said, these are alien beings we're talking about, and maybe they didn't know, well, what they did would kill these two men, sadly. So I still will give these aliens the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was all a mistake. Either way, folks, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics that are bad for you. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.